very warm welcome to our Hey Guru's first live webinar session. I'm Pallavi. I work as a product manager at Hey Guru, your education companion. At the moment, Hey Guru provides you practice tests for your OC and selective preparation. We do have bigger plans for Hey Guru in the future, but I try to make this platform a better platform every day for our students and for our teachers and parents. This will be an interactive session with parents and students, so do post your questions, your concerns, your queries on our Facebook page or on our WhatsApp number, which is 0432 786 686. We have a very special guest tonight with us, who's Angela. Angela is the content writer and author for our platform, and she's graduated from James Roos School. Angela, anything, something about you?
Okay, so yeah, like she said, my name is Angela, and I did my selective exam a number of years ago, got into James Roos, and have since graduated from there. I've been teaching OC and selective for over 5 years now, and over that time, I've observed many different changes that have occurred to these particular exams, but nothing as major as the changes we've seen this past year. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about how we've been trying to use Hey Guru as a platform to create questions to help students prepare for the new exam.
Right, exactly. So before we jump into any of the questions from our parents or from our students, let's address the elephant in the room, which is the changed pattern of selective exam from 2021. So I would like you to answer simple questions like, what are the changes in the pattern? Are there any big changes? Do the parents or the students be worried? Do they need to panic, or it's just name changes and it's nothing major?
Okay, so like always, when things change, people get worried. Panic is normal, but I'm here to tell you that there is no reason to panic. Because, as always, the foundations, the basic skills that students have to learn are still the same. Even though, the names have changed, things have changed. Like math, for example, right? The basics, things like fractions, decimals, percentages, those things don't change. Students still need to know those basics. It's just the way the questions are presented is changing a little bit. So, for example, like GA has become thinking skills. Mathematics has become mathematical reasoning. And then we have our reading and our writing sections. But there's no too many changes. They'll be okay.
Oh, that's good. That's a positive news. Thank you for that. So you're saying the new sections that are introduced, thinking skills and mathematical reasoning, they're not very different from general ability and mathematics?
General ability is a big difference. So the old general ability, there was a really, really big focus on vocabulary. So, making sure you actually know the meanings of words. They would ask you things like synonyms, antonyms, which one is the odd one out. Lots of things that require memorization. So on the day, if the students have never heard this word before, there's no way they can do the exam. It's just too hard. They have to guess. But the thing is now with thinking skills, it's more about logical thinking and your understanding of the world, which makes it a lot easier, I believe, for the students, because all they have to think is, in my life, what have I experienced? Does this make sense to me? That's it. It's just thinking, what's the mistake in this argument? What is it mainly talking about? Things that are just so much easier than memorizing words, because at least, they have a chance on the day. You don't have to prepare too much. You walk in, you try it to see how you go. Mathematics, I think the questions with mathematics, the old mathematics, were a lot more direct. They would just give you the operation as it was. They'd give you an equation, they'd ask you to solve it. Now, it's mathematical reasoning. So you're using multiple different skills often to solve the same problem. So 2 or 3 different types of mathematical skills. And, more importantly, a question that could be written in 2 sentences, they're making 6 sentences. So the students, they have to pick out which is the important part of the question. It's often a very simple question, but disguised as something more complex. And the important thing for students to do is actually to pick out which part is relevant to me. And more importantly, they're putting tricks into the question. So they're asking which one is incorrect, which one cannot be true, which one, that kind of thing, little wording things to trick the students.
Exactly. So basically what you're saying, that these changes are not really big changes, but the good part is that you don't have to memorize things. You have to be more analytical, which is good. You don't have to pressurize your children to memorize things and just to mug up just right before the exam, which is good. That's really good change, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's actually a positive change for the students.
And what about the existing sections, the reading and writing? Do you see there would be any changes there as well?
Okay, so reading, there's been big changes. It used to be all comprehension. So, students will be given lots of different texts, and there'll be questions that are just relevant to the one text. Now we're starting to see, so poetry has always been there, there's still a poetry section. And obviously what I'm talking about right now, I'm going off the official sample paper that was released by the Department of Education. So we haven't seen, no students have done the exam. We haven't seen the actual paper.
Exactly.
So what we're predicting is all just based off the sample paper. But the first extract will be like, they give you 2 different extracts and they ask you questions, some of them on 1 or 2 texts. Some of them will ask you for the connection, you know, they'll be like, what is similar between the 2 different extracts? Or which text does blah, blah, blah. And you have to pick, is it extract A, B, both, or neither, things like that. So it's testing, you know, can they make connections between the 2 texts? Can they identify similarities and differences? And there'll also be the closed passage section. So again, I don't think this is asking too much of the children. I think it's easier than what they're used to, because all they have to do is, like in primary school, they've done closed passages, there'll be words missing, they fill them in. Now, there's sentences missing instead. And they give you the sentences at the bottom. They just have to look, you know, which sentence fits best into this gap. And that's all they're doing. It's not, I think actually it's gotten easier than you know, the old comprehension. But it just takes a little bit of getting used to. So exposing them to as many different past papers and questions as possible. So that's where our platform like Hey Guru comes in. We've got 10 sets of practice tests so they can get used to the new format and things like that. But they'll start to see, oh, where am I making mistakes? What do I need to improve on? As long as they do that, I think they'll be fine. Writing has become more unconventional, I would say. So obviously we've only had 1 sample paper and it was shocking. There was an advice sheet that they've asked the students to write. In my 13 years of education, I've never come across an advice sheet, never been taught how to write an advice sheet in my life. So what they're doing here is trying to start with the children. They've gone from persuasives and creative writing, which you know the students are used to doing already, and they've given them something they've never really heard of. And it is different, but the important thing is that no student has been taught it. It's not part of our syllabus. We haven't learnt it. So everyone is confused. You just have to, on the day you walk in, you read the question and you do the best that you can.
Okay. So again, the key is here to be analytical and just be yourself, be intuitive, and then you should be good to go.
Yes.
Okay. That's a positive takeaway from there. So you know, our platform is an interactive platform, so we do get feedback from our parents, from our students. They write to us, they call us, they message us. So this is a generic question that I came across from a lot of parents. Basically, a generic suggestions. So given your experience as a tutor, I'm sure you must be a familiar face to a lot of students. So given your experience and given your familiarity, what are your suggestions? How can they prepare?
I know that a big thing that when the department released the new paper, the whole idea was to make it less coachable. They're trying to make it so students can't go to tutoring. The one thing I can definitely guarantee you from my many years of tutoring is that it's still beneficial to send your children to tutoring, to buy practice papers, to do more packages and more exams. It is always useful because the basic skills are still there. If they're getting a question wrong, they still need to be able to understand, what are the underlying principles that they need to be learning. So, you know, what kind of mathematical skills are they weak on? They're still getting to identify those. And more importantly, it's allowing them to become familiar with the same types of questions. Because yes, they know how to do maths. If I give you a fraction that's just, you know, written in fraction form, they know how to do it. If I put it into a worded question, can they still do that question? That is what mathematical reasoning is all about. So it's still good practice. I think things like tutoring will still help them learn skills, will still help them picking up tips for answering these new questions. And like I did mention before, the Hey Guru platform does come into use for things like that. We've designed it to help the students understand both. We've tried to cover all the fundamentals that they should need to know, and we're putting lots of tricky questions, lots of tricks, so that they start to work out, what possible tricks can they put in? What do I have to pick up? Where do I have to be careful? Because like once bitten, twice shy, right? They've made the mistake once, they'll learn from it. And that's our aim when we've created this platform.
Exactly. And just to add to that, our platform also suggests what are your strengths of your children, what are your weaknesses of your children, how much time is spending on the section, on the question. So I guess everything as a holistic will help your child improve.
Yeah, definitely. I believe so.
Yeah, definitely. So let's move on to one question that was posted a little earlier. So given now there are just 5 days remaining to the exam, they're very, very close to the exam. So what do you think? What is the best way to use this time now?
Okay, so I know conventional wisdom, this is, I think, the old people's way of doing things, is actually to cram, you know, let's do more practice papers, let's do as much as we can. But, you know, I've gone through lots of years of schooling, lots of years of tutoring, and the one biggest piece of advice I can give you is don't start anything new now. Now is not the time to show your students things they've never seen before, because guaranteed they're already stressed. They're already feeling, you know, a little bit scared.
Exactly.
Lots of my students, when I talk to them, that's what they're all saying. They're very brilliant, bright students. They're all feeling scared. They're like, what are they going to do? What are they going to give me?
Yeah. What happens if it doesn't go well?
Yeah, that's exactly what their concern is. And what I want to say is, don't give them new things. So all my students, all I'm doing now is revising the things they've already done. Brush up on the mistakes you've made before. So this is where they go back to, if they've had a book where they've been doing their selective questions, go back. Look from the beginning of their journey. See what mistakes have they regularly made. Because that will help them, A, realize, oh, what mistakes am I commonly making, so they stop making those mistakes. Because, you know, practice is useless if you don't learn from your mistakes, right? They need to realize exactly what mistakes they're making so that on the day they don't make those mistakes. And secondly, it's really useful to them to see how far they've come. So I often make my students read over writing that they did, you know, a year ago versus what they're doing now. Because they'll give me work. I tell them, how did you feel? What did you think of this work? And they'll say, I think it's terrible. I think it's really, really bad. And I'll say, can you get out the work you did for me when we first started 1 year ago? Can you show me that and compare it? And then they start to see, oh look, when I started, I was so much worse than I am now.
Yeah, they made progress. Yeah.
And the main thing here is obviously, progress. As long as they're learning, as long as they're, you know, becoming smarter and more knowledgeable, that's what we really want. That is the aim, right? So I think as long as they can see, you need to try and build their confidence, and one really good way to do that is for them to see, oh, how have I improved over time? So right now, I think that's the best thing they can do, to revise and just don't start anything new. It's not worth doing now.
That's a good takeaway. Don't start anything new at the moment with so many less time you have. So there's a question from a parent. What are 3 things that my kid should avoid during the exam? And just a reminder, do keep posting your questions to our WhatsApp and Facebook pages.
Okay,
Should I repeat the question, please?
Yes, please. Sorry.
It was, what are the 3 things that my kid should avoid during the exam?
Okay, 3 things they should avoid. One thing is panicking. Definitely, as soon as they see, there will obviously be questions they have never seen before. That is, the nature of this new exam is there will be things they've never seen before. But the important thing is, first of all, not to panic. To realize that if you are panicking, if you have never seen, like especially writing is where generally they're going to be shocked, I reckon. So instead of thinking, oh my god, how am I going to do this? I've never seen this before, never done this before. Think really, really slowly. Slow your brain down. Don't panic. Take deep breaths. That actually does help. You know, it calms down your body. Then remember that everyone around you is in the same boat. If you've never seen this before, guaranteed 95% at least of those students have never seen it before. So you need to think, okay, look, what skills do I have available to me? How can I use those instead of panicking? That's the first important one. Second one is, I think, I do this, I'm pretty sure other people do this too, is drinking too much water during the exam. Because often when we're stressed, we get thirsty. Like when you're panicking, you get thirsty. And secondly, you're nervous, so you want something to do. They all start drinking their water. Don't do that. Don't waste your time drinking water too much. Obviously, if you're thirsty, drink a little. But there'll be an exam. So during the exam, you have your reading and your writing section. Then you have a break before the other section. So make sure during those times you go to the bathroom, you drink your water. Don't drink all your water during exam time and then have to go to the bathroom.
Exactly, and waste your time again.
And the other thing is, students get really, really, they forget about time. They forget the clock. Because, you know, especially thinking skills I'm starting to find, and maths, if the questions are hard, they're longer than they used to be, right? People spend half a page question, they freak out. Don't panic when you see it. Often it looks hard, but it's actually not that hard. And secondly, make sure you keep an eye on the clock. You should never spend more than absolute maximum 2 minutes on a question. If you have gone over the 2-minute mark on a question, you're just wasting too much time. If you're hitting more than a minute, that is where you go, am I close? And if I'm really close, keep going. Finish it off. If you know you're going to get the answer, it's worth doing. If you're thinking, I spent a minute, I still don't know how to do it, don't do it. Avoid it, guess something, come back at the end. But don't waste precious exam time if you're not guaranteed to get those marks.
Sure. Do remember the 2-minute thing. Yeah. That's a good answer. Thank you so much for that. So what suggestions you have for the students to keep their calm?
Okay, so this is where we need the parents' help too. Obviously, the parents are very integral because students are young, they don't have good self-control. So I would say one thing, make sure they sleep early. I know personally, if I have an exam the next day, if I have camp, I'm going on holiday, anything exciting, anything big, you can't sleep the night before. I'll go to bed at normal time and I'll just be sitting there rolling around, thinking everything, panicking, anything but sleeping. So make sure you send them to bed earlier than they need to go to bed, okay? During the day, keep them busy. Don't let them sit at home and do nothing. Keep them busy. Go to the park, go for a walk, walk the dog, whatever, anything you want to do. Keep them busy so that they are actually tired at the end of the day. Then they'll have a good night's sleep. That's one thing. The other thing, obviously, this is where the parents are really important. Make sure your students are eating healthy and, drinking, eating everything healthy. That's your responsibility to make sure they're actually being healthy, because they make terrible choices, I'm sure. The other thing, day before for me, this was always something I did. Don't study. Don't do anything new. The night before the exam, don't even need to revise that day.
Okay.
I would say, watch your favorite movie, read your favorite book, let them relax, because they need to be distracted. Like, now is not the time to build up all the panic inside of them, right? So let them just relax, do something they like doing. Watch a funny movie. They'll laugh a little, they'll let loose. That's good for them.
Yeah.
And the other thing, I know parents think this exam is really important, and it is to a certain extent, but please make sure your children know that this exam is not the only thing in the world. Like, they will sit so many more important exams later on in life. This is one small step in this, big journey that we call life. And there's always other ways to get into selective schools. I've noticed so many people. I went to James. I know people who transferred from non-selective schools to James in year 11. Things like that. It's always possible. So I'm saying, don't send them in thinking, oh my God, if you don't do well, I'm going to be really angry. You don't make your children feel that way. Please make them feel that you have their back and you will support them no matter how good or bad they do. Okay? And if they don't happen to do as well, just let them know it's okay. You're still there for them. It's fine. Let them know that there's so many more important things to look forward to in life than this one exam. So obviously, don't tell them to try their best. Tell them to try their best, but also make sure they know that you will always support them no matter how good or bad they do.
Yeah. And I guess once you're preparing. It never, nothing will go wasted. So whatever. If you don't qualify this, you qualify something else. But nothing will go wasted.
That's the thing, exactly. These skills that they learn now, they'll still use later on in life anyway. They'll help them become more analytical, logically thinking people. They'll help them learn maths that will help them in high school. No matter what, even if you might think, oh, I paid all this money for tutoring, whatever, and they didn't get in. I know lots of parents feel upset about that. But I think to you, you need to remember two things. One, you did your best. You did what you could to help your child. And secondly, you know that they will still be able to use that knowledge somewhere in their life. So at some point, those skills that they learn will still help them. So try to think of it as a learning opportunity instead of a waste or anything like that.
Exactly. True. Just to remind you, keep posting your questions on our Facebook and WhatsApp numbers. So there's another question. The question is from Elora Khan. And this person says, any thinking skill tips you have?
Okay, so there's two kinds of thinking skills questions actually. We have our problem solving sections and our critical thinking questions.
Okay.
So problem solving, we generally define it as involving multiple different techniques and skills. So it requires a good understanding of English, because they'll word things in a weird way to try and confuse the students. You have to think about that. They have to think about, how many different mathematical skills am I going to need? It's not going to be a one-step process. It's always going to be 2 to 3 steps minimum. And then we have our critical thinking. So the problem solving, normally the students seem to know how to do it. If you read it slowly, you break it down, they do know how to do it. What they are struggling with is remembering the tricks in the question. So you'll often say some little things. So you'll think, okay, they'll ask which person will definitely win, for example. And they'll pick the person who has the highest score. But maybe it'll say they have to have the highest score and they have to have a minimum of 5 in every section. And the person who will, in the table they give you scores, the person who gets the highest score will have one section where they got a 4. So they are automatically disqualified. But the students will forget that little part of the question and they'll pick that person. So they've wasted all that time, to get as far as they've gotten and then forget that one little part. So that's, one of those things they have to be careful. Lots of children are falling for that particular
trick. Just be observant, basically.
To be very careful with the tricks in the question. And secondly, this is about critical thinking. It's not as hard as it seems. It just needs practice. So the more the children do it, the more used to it they'll get. A really important thing in the critical thinking is analysing flaws in an argument. So they'll give me an argument and they'll tell me, what have they assumed when they've done this argument? What is the mistake that they have made? So this is what you need to think as a person. If someone came up to me and said this argument to me to try and convince me of whatever the particular topic is, would you believe them? So you have to think as a person, would I believe them? Why would I believe them, or why would I not believe them? Do I think it's a strong argument? And what do I disagree with from their argument? If I find a mistake, what do I disagree with? What do I think is wrong? Like, what counter argument comes to my mind? So if they start to slowly think things like that, they'll start doing really well in this section. The other thing, there's the verbal reasoning questions where they'll be like, what is the main idea of this particular, for example, that's one of the styles of questions. So main idea questions, sometimes the children will pick something, but if they pick that answer, they have to make sure that that is mentioned more than once in the text.
Okay.
Sometimes they pick answers and only one sentence in my whole paragraph is talking about that. That's not the main idea, obviously.
Right.
You need to read between the lines, work out 3 to 4 sentences like throughout the paragraph. What do they keep coming back to? Are they talking about one particular topic again and again? That is, sometimes it'll be written in a different way. They won't use the same wording or phrasing, but they'll say the same thing in different ways. So you're looking for that. Where are they using the same wording in a different way? Use that and you'll do really well.
Okay. So have an open mind, be observant, be intuitive.
Yes.
I guess these things will help.
Definitely,
Yeah. Moving on to our next question. So as you're aware that Hey Guru provides analytics integrated with the platform. So from our analysis here and there, we realized that a lot of students are also finding mathematical reasoning very challenging.
Okay.
Do you have any tips for them?
Well, I suppose, like I did mention before, the difference from mathematics to mathematical reasoning is now the questions have become more wordy. The basic questions, the same thing, they've asked, something that can be asked in 3 sentences, they might make it half a page. They'll put all these images in, they make it look like a really big question. So, you open the paper, you're like, oh my God, what is this? And you freak out. That's what the children are doing. But they have to start to realize that a lot of it is there just to confuse them. A lot of it is there just to waste their time.
Okay.
So they need to skim read, pick out the important parts. I would say because, this year's exam is still a paper exam, so they're lucky in that regard. So I would say underline the important parts of the question.
Yeah.
Anything that is there just to waste your time, cross it out. If you don't need it, cross it out. Don't look at it again. Only look at the things that are important. Circle the tricks. If it says, something that you notice will trick you later on. Sometimes we notice the trick, but then when we're answering the question, we work out the solution and we forget about the trick we
were
noticed
actually asking about the opposite thing, like they missed the knot or things like that.
Exactly.
Incorrect, like confusing
They,
words like
sometimes
that.
they read it out loud, they say incorrect. I've had students look at me and they say, I don't get why I've got this wrong. And I say, it says incorrect. And they're like, I found
and
the
point
incorrect.
out the correct thing.
And then I have to say, is that incorrect or is that actually correct?
Exactly.
And they notice that. So things like that, make sure they underline it, make sure they're looking for the tricks. And most importantly, they have to determine what is important to them. And remember, this is where they panic. Remind them not to panic, because if you look through that sample paper, a lot of those questions are very straightforward questions. They're just disguised to look more complicated than they are. So just, intuitively thinking about the questions will help.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you for that. And we just received a compliment as well that says that session was really nice and will help our kids.
Thank you,
Angela, for that. Again, a reminder, do keep posting your queries and questions. Moving on to the next question. Do you have any writing tips for the students?
Okay, so when we think about writing, there's really 3 important things, okay? The first thing is the intended audience. So the students need to think about who they are writing for. Are they writing for the general public? Are they writing for students? Are they writing for parents, teachers? Who is going to be the audience of this? Sometimes it will say or sometimes you have to read between the lines. If they say, writing in this particular seminar, right? I know that I'm talking to parents who are, have students doing their selective exam, and I have students who are doing their selective exam. So I'm not going to cater it to someone who's in Year 2 or in kindergarten. I'm catering it to this particular audience. So if they ask you to write, for example, a travel magazine, an article for a travel magazine, you have to be catering it towards people who want to travel. You have to be catering it towards older people, because little children are not going to be the ones making travel plans. They have to read between the lines. If it's about some charity fundraiser, we're talking to people who are generous and giving. That's what we want. If it's talking about nursing homes, we are catering to people who have parents old enough to be in nursing homes, and to people in nursing homes. So whatever the question is, I'm making up these topics as I go, but just they need to think about who is it actually supposed to be written for. Sometimes, like I said, it won't be given. Sometimes, like the sample paper, it told you you're writing for certain students who are moving to their new school. So there's things like that. You have to think, what kind of language am I going to use? So formal, informal, don't go too informal ever, because you're writing. It's not a casual conversation. So you don't want to go too colloquial. There's a difference between informal and colloquial. So you don't want to use really, really casual words. Like you wouldn't use with anyone older than 5. Slang. Don't use slang. But you can use informal language, contractions, things like that. If the topic is asking for a more casual thing, you can use that. So that's where the audience is important. Secondly, the form. So are they asking a persuasive, a discussion, a narrative, creative? Is it asking for an advice sheet like the sample paper did, or poster, brochure, debate, speech? They can ask anything. My point here is, it's not like anything we've expected in the past. We don't know. None of us can predict what particular form they're going to give them. But guaranteed at some point they will have seen it somewhere. For example, an advice sheet. We've never been taught an advice sheet. If you go into smarttraveler.com, that's a website where people go on before they travel. It'll give you advice about traveling if you're going to this country, look out for these things, make sure you have your passport ready, all these basic things. That's exactly what they're supposed to do on an advice sheet too.
Okay.
So even though it's not something they have learnt before, they've seen it somewhere. You know?
Okay.
So they might ask like a brochure. Make sure you get your children, your students, to read widely. So don't restrict them just to the things they read in exams or practice papers. Don't only make them read books and short stories, things like that. People think reading books is really going to help their children. I loved reading books. Like as a child, I was such a book nerd, honestly. But I will not say that reading helped me with my writing.
Oh, okay.
Because there's novels, right? I read novels. Novels, you can't write a novel in 30 minutes.
Exactly.
So people who read novels, sometimes what they try to do is write a 300-page story in 2 pages. And then it sounds, poorly planned, it's not good. So obviously if your children like reading, let them read. I'm not saying don't, but I'm
For
saying...
their interest,
but I'm saying don't say, oh, they have to read, it's going to help them with their writing. People say that. Honestly, that's what my parents thought too back then. They were like, oh, it's good she's reading. But then it got to a point where they were telling me to stop reading because I was reading too much. I'd read 6 books a day and they're like, what is she doing? But it doesn't actually further them as much as you think it will. Get them instead to read different types of text. So get them to read a blog post. If you see an interesting newspaper article, make them read it. Ask them questions about it. Ask them, what do you think? What's your opinion on this? That kind of stuff. Ask them, do you think, is it biased reporting or is it unbiased? Make them read drama scripts, make them read newspaper articles, and then also magazines. Try to explain to them what's the difference between a newspaper article and a magazine. So, there's always subtle differences. Talk to them. So if a certain news channel does a news report, are they going to be biased? Is there a particular bias in that? If you understand these things, explain it to your children when they're watching it with you. Explain to them, what did you see? Ask them questions about the things they've read and done. That way, they're getting a wide understanding of the world around them. Because like I said, you have no idea what they'll get on the day. So it's good to just have them prepared. That way they'll be okay.
So just to summarize, understand the audience while you're writing in your exam and understand the form you said.
Yes.
Form of the questions asked. And to help the students or your children, just add a variety of reading content in the day-to-day life.
Exactly.
Thank you for that. Moving on to our next question. So as of now, right now, if you see, Angela, there are a plethora of platforms available for students to prepare. They go to online courses, they go to offline classes, there are a variety of mock tests available, variety of platforms available for them to take these mock tests. So there was a question raised by a lot of parents, like how much do they rely on the results of these mock tests? So what do you think about the content of these mock tests?
That's an interesting question, actually. I would say nobody knows. No one has any idea, apart from obviously the people who made the paper. No one knows what this paper is going to look like. No idea. We don't know if it's going to be easier, harder than the sample paper, same. I would predict, and this is obviously just completely what I'm, expecting. I think
let's just go. We're not the officials over here.
We obviously have no affiliation to the actual Board of Studies. We have no idea what will come up. But I think it will be catered just a little bit harder than the sample paper. That's what I'm predicting will happen. But the important thing from these results right now, because obviously we haven't seen enough papers to know for sure what the difficulty will be like, don't focus on the marks, focus on the areas for improvement. So for example, the people who bought the Hey Guru platform, they will know it provides you with analytics on which particular sections, do the students need to work on, which one have they done well in, is their time management good with one type of question and bad with another. It'll point out all those little things. Focus on those. Focus on where are they making the most mistakes. If they're getting only 10% or 20% of questions right, that's where you need to be working. You can easily increase that to 50, 60 at least. That's going to make a big difference, right?
Course,
As opposed to going from 70 to 80% in something they're already good at. It's better to focus on the things they're struggling with. Make it so they move it up as much as you can. So right now, my biggest advice is to use those platforms to expose them to as many questions as possible, and also to work out which areas they need to improve on.
To understand their weakness and focus on them.
Yes.
So we have another question that's posted by Garima Dale. She says, post-selective, when my daughter is waiting for results, what are your tips on managing stress?
Managing stress, distract them.
Okay.
I think
there you go, Garima, distract them.
Distract them. Go do fun things with them. A lot of them, I know, my students, they want to do things. They want to read books. Some of them, they do all sorts of interesting things, and their parents are making them do work instead, which understandable. I know that's what you want them to do. But now that they're done, they have a couple of months. For a few months, they'll forget anyway because it's so far away. They won't think about it. But as it's getting closer to the exam day, the best thing for you to do is, take them out to watch movies, make them hang with their friends, buy them fun games they like playing, let them do the things they want. They've obviously, a lot of them spent 1-2 years preparing for this exam. High school cycle is not going to be easier. It's only going to keep on, they're going to have more to do.
More stress.
Whilst they have time to relax, they're still children. Let them be children. Let them relax. Let them do whatever they like. Really, like obviously, your parents, where the limits are, but make sure they have fun. And it's natural to feel a little bit nervous. That happens to all of us. We're all going to feel a little bit nervous.
Of course.
But if you distract them a little bit, they won't focus on it too much. Like the night the exam results or the results come out, watch a movie with them, do something else. They'll get lost in their own world and they'll forget about it for a while. Yeah. That's my biggest tip too.
That's a good tip. Thank you for that. So we've got a lot of feedback on our platform.
Okay.
This one is my best and favorite feedback.
Okay.
So this feedback says, Hey Guru as of now has been the best investment for this parent.
Okay.
And this parent is saying that this platform has helped his child to practice a lot of questions. So as Hey Guru's content provider, what is your feedback on this?
Well, it's definitely very, very encouraging for all of us.
Of course.
A lot of us, not just me, there's a lot of faces that you're not seeing right now. They're all putting in so much time and effort to make sure that this is a great course. We are really, really trying to provide excellence for our parents and students. So yeah, it's definitely very encouraging. Thank you so much for all the positive feedback. We want all your feedback, positive, negative, it's okay. Let us know so that we can make the changes that we need. Let us know what you want to see, what you're liking, what you're not liking. Exactly. And we'll do everything we can to try and make it as good as we can for you.
Right, so do drop us suggestions here, do drop us suggestions offline. Our platform is also very interactive as well. You can drop your suggestions and advice anytime. You're most welcome on that. Another feedback that we received, it's on the mixed complexity. So some parents feel the content that's provided on Hey Guru's platform is really easy, and some of the parents feel that it's too complicated and this might not be the complexity level of the actual exam. So what do you think? What's your take on that?
Right. Some interesting feedback that was given to me, about 10 minutes before we started this webinar actually, is that some of the students have been showing their parents, I'm getting 100%, I'm getting really well. And the parents aren't tracking their reports. They're thinking, look, there's 3 sets. So with the Hey Guru exams, you can take them 3 times. Yeah. So some of the students have done it the first time, they've got like 50%. Then they've done it again, then they've done it again. At that point, they have revised the test twice. They've gone over their mistakes twice, they're doing it again, they're getting 95, 100%. They're showing it to their parents, and it's good they're improving. I'm not saying it's bad, but they're showing that to their parents and saying, look, I've done really well. So this is where Hey Guru has a parent account. So the parents are also able to see the reports of their students. If, just saying, okay, it's very, very, very unlikely that they're going to do it the first time and get over 90, 95%. Right. I'm not saying never, but you know your children, you know how bright they are, but I'm saying it's very unlikely. The tests are not meant to be that easy. So if they're doing that well, there is probably something suspicious going on. This is where we need your help to have a look at, is this their first attempt or is it their third attempt, things like that. The other thing is, it's impossible right now for us to know how hard it's going to be. So like I mentioned before, we've tried to make it just a little bit harder than the actual sample tape test has been. Because we are catering to students of all levels. We want students who want to get into things like, so like I said, James Roos, we want them to be able to benefit from our platform. We want children who want to go to partially selective schools, from the best ones to the ones that don't require as high a mark. That doesn't mean they're bad schools. I'm saying there's obviously different demands. The entry mark depends on the demand for a school. That's what happens. Sometimes, so James Roos, because this is from personal experience, has the highest ranking. So 25, 26 years in a row, it's been first in New South Wales for HSC. But I think a couple of those years, to get into the school, the mark required to get in was lower than it was for Borkham Hills, which Borkham Hills is a school that's still very high up, but it fluctuates. I think this year it's second, some years it goes to 6, 7. It fluctuates, right? So the takeaway here is actually that the cutoff mark is based on the demand from the students, right? It's not based on how good the school is or how bad the school is. Just because the school has a low cutoff mark doesn't mean it's a bad school. It just means it might be easier for the student to get into. That's all it means, right? So the important thing here is we are trying to cater to all those students. We don't want someone who has never tried a selective exam before to come in, try our exam and get 10%. We still want them to be getting 40, 50%, so they feel motivated and encouraged to keep going. So we haven't made all of our questions really, really, really hard. We've tried to, like I said, a little bit harder than the sample paper. So we've got some really easy questions. You will see them. There might be like 4 or 5 really, really easy questions. Then we'll have 5 really hard questions, and then some ones in the middle that are intermediate to standard kind of questions. And we fluctuate between that. And like I said, if you have mixed feedback, we are getting mixed feedback from the same platform, which means it's something to do with the students too. So consider like the ability of your children, right? Some of them will find things easier than other ones, and that's completely dependent on the actual student. So I would also keep that in mind.
Okay. Moving on to our next feedback. This feedback basically, or that's a question asked for a platform, that do we have any plans to move into any other virtual learning or online learning courses? So as product manager at Hey Guru, I would like to say a big yes. That yes, we do have a vision or a roadmap where we want to have virtual learning or online learning courses available on our platform. With your continued support and with Angela's continued support, that might happen sooner than later. What do you think about it?
Yeah, this has been a very, very big year for us. You know, our first year was launched an OC and a selective practice test. Yay, so for us, that in itself is a big achievement. Yeah. We don't want to rush into things because we want your feedback. That's, parent feedback is really, really important for us so that we know what are you expecting, where do you want us to go in the future, and what do you want us to improve? Because what we have in the market right now, we want that to be really, really good, and then we're going to slowly move on, right? So we definitely do have steps that way, like you said, we're planning for online learning, things like that. If you want to know, like our Facebook page, follow our Facebook page, or just keep watching it every now and then, have a look at our page, and we'll keep you updated as updates happen.
Definitely, and help us build this platform better every day. So there's another concern, I would say, with the platform. The concern here raised is that the course that is available for OC is still in the old format and it's not updated yet. So what do you think? When can we update it? As a product person, I would say that as soon as the content gets updated, it will be available for you. So you don't have to worry about it, how to go about it, how shall I update the course for myself. All that will be taken care by the platform. But what do you think? When will that be available?
Okay, so this is the reason we haven't officially changed anything is we haven't got the sample paper from the Department of Education.
Right.
So as with our selective program, we started creating the program before that sample paper came out. Right. Sample paper was some similar things, some different. We had to redo a lot of things, to suit the new format before we released. So in the same way, we don't want to jump the gun with, as so to speak. So with the OC format, we are actually, we've started, trying to update a couple of things because we have been told there's going to be a thinking skills and mathematical reasoning section, like we've had with Selective. So we definitely know that's happening. We've started making content for that, but we don't know what the exams are going to look like. People are predicting, with the old OC format, we had 2 separate sections that had a mix of English and mathematics questions in them. Now they're predicting maybe they'll do it like Selective. It'll be 1 thinking skills paper, 1 math paper. We really don't know yet. So it's all just predicting for now. So we are going to wait until the official paper is released before we, put our updates to the public. So
exactly, provide you with the right content or the right format.
because we want to make sure that what we provide at the end of the day is the right content.
Exactly.
But like you said, it'll be a seamless transition on the parents' part. So if you've already bought the course, don't worry. We will still make sure it's updated for you as soon as it's possible for us to do so.
Thank you for that. So let me see if you have any more questions on our platform. Just a reminder again, do keep dropping us your questions here. We do have, they're basically a consolidated question. So any tips for writing closed passages and any tips to do reading answers quickly and efficiently? So I'll break it down for you again. Any tips for writing closed passages?
I'll start with that one. This is the easiest one. There's a tip that everyone goes to, which is, again, it requires a little bit of analytical thinking skills. What you need to realize is every sentence in a paragraph or a passage is leading you somewhere. They're not going to say something and then repeat the same thing again in another way. They're going to build on it throughout the paragraph. That's the only logical thing to do. So they're not going to randomly be talking about sharks and then put in something about an octopus randomly, unless the sharks are eating the octopus. That's the only way. So you have to think, is this relevant to this particular paragraph? Does it fit? If I'm talking about the outside of a boat, will I randomly mention the inside? No. I'm going to, do that somewhere else where it makes sense. So you read the sentence before and afterwards. Normally, if the gap is in the middle of a paragraph, you have to read especially the one before and after, maybe 2 before and after. And you see, what am I missing? What do I feel like I haven't been told yet? Often, as the students read it, they'll understand, there's some link that's missing that I'm not understanding. What am I missing? And then when you look at your answer options, you'll start to see, this can't be right, this can't be right. So you might have 2 or 3 options. Try putting each of them in, see which one works best. It takes a bit of time. It's not something that takes 10 or 20 seconds to do. But it's really just a little bit of logic and a lot of analytical thinking. If something's at the beginning of a paragraph, you know that the way sentences are written, normally you have a topic sentence and then the rest will elaborate and the last sentence might conclude on whatever's being talked about. So if it's the first sentence missing, firstly, read the paragraph before, like the end of the paragraph before, to see if it continues. And secondly, read the whole paragraph after it. Read the entire paragraph. Then you'll see, oh, what is it talking about? Because the first sentence should introduce you to that particular topic or idea. So it's really logical. Like ask them when they write persuasives, for example, that has a very set structure. How do they normally do those? There's obviously you'll know if a sentence is in the wrong place. In the same way, sometimes it would be a bit tricky. You'll have to look for little clues. Like if it mentions furthermore, that means they've already briefly touched on this beforehand. So they're adding something more. You have to look for those little clues to try and piece it together.
Right. I hope that was helpful. For me, yes, I understood what you were trying to say.
Yeah, we're hoping this is helpful to all of our viewers as well.
Right. So there's another question. I guess it's a repetitive question. I think this person joined recently our conversation. Umer here says, what's your thought about thinking skills and what sort of questions are targeted in that area? So if you want to sum up again, I think you already covered that.
Yeah, I did cover this slide.
Yeah, if you just want to repeat it.
I'll quickly summarize
it. Yeah.
So I talked about problem-solving questions, critical thinking, and there's a little bit of verbal reasoning. So problem-solving questions are often just mathematical questions, but there'll be like tricks in the English, so you have to be careful how you read it, otherwise you'll miss something that is important to the question. And it requires 2 or 3 steps minimum. So there are lots of different mathematical skills being tested in one particular question. They always require more than a minute. That's just how they're made.
Right.
Then you will have your critical thinking questions where you have to find a flaw in the argument. So that's important. This is where I said before, my tip was to think about if someone, came up to me and said this to me as an argument, would I believe it? Would I think, oh, this is a good argument, I agree with this person? Or would I think, oh, no, that doesn't make sense. That's wrong, right? If they're thinking that, they're starting to understand, where the flaw is. So that's what critical thinking is about. Then you have verbal reasoning. So that's where it might ask you which of these supports the argument, which one strengthens, which one weakens, or which one is the main idea. So main idea, a lot of the kids will pick the sentence that they see. They'll see it in the paragraph, they'll see it again as an answer option, they pick it. You cannot just simply do that because if it's only mentioned in one sentence out of your entire paragraph, that's not going to be helpful, right? That doesn't summarize the entire paragraph. So often you'll have the same type of phrase repeated multiple times throughout the paragraph, but it'll be said slightly differently to try and confuse you. So look for that. What is the thing that it keeps on tying back to? If you find that, you'll know exactly what the main idea is because it's repeated multiple times. Then we have our, didn't actually mention this before, but we have things like spatial reasoning, which is just shape. So that's something, a lot of what's going to be the front view of this particular solid or the side view. That's something that you can either help them by giving them Lego building blocks, things to think about. 3D, or their brain, they have to think about it. I can't put the image in their head for them. They have to actually think about it in their head.
Imagine it.
And often the advice here is to cross out the options you know are wrong and then to focus on what's right.
So
because you might have, process of elimination definitely helps with spatial reasoning questions.
Thank you for that, and thank you for repeating a lot of stuff.
That's it, right?
I guess we're close to our closing time, so if you have any just last minute tip for students to follow on the exam day.
Okay, we will actually, I wrote up a blog about this, so we will eventually get this blog to you as well with some last minute tips.
Sure,
But in the meantime, I'll just give you a couple of pointers. One of them is to avoid nervous people. So even before my HSC exams, I remember I would go stand outside the exam hall and there'd be people panicking. They'd be last minute looking over their notes. They're a mess. Don't go near those people because it rubs off on you. You know how they say your friends will write, whoever your friends are, that's who you become? In the same way, the people who are around you, you're going to start reacting the same way they do. So if you panic when they're around you, don't go near them. If your parents are more stressed than you, because this used to happen to me, I would be like, it's okay, it's just an exam. My mom would be there next to me, she'd be more stressed than me. If I'm getting my results, she can't sleep, I sleep perfectly fine. But, that kind of thing, if your parents are stressing you out, don't even stand with your parents. Honestly, either go stand by yourself or go stand with friends who are not stressing out, have a normal conversation about something else. That will just help calm them down because everyone's going to be feeling a little bit nervous. That's natural, but you don't want to, overdo the nervousness. That's all. The other thing I did mention before is to avoid drinking water unless you have to. So during exam time, don't waste all your time drinking water because you're nervous. So dry mouth, they say, is a symptom of nervousness and stress. Doesn't mean you should be, drinking lots of water because you will have to go to the bathroom and you will waste exam time. Don't do that. You just don't have time to waste, honestly.
Right.
Even if you're finished early, check your work. The number of times people have told me when I'm reviewing exams with them later on, they're like, oh, that's what I got, but then I put the wrong answer down on my paper. Too many times students do that. They often get the right answer, they put the wrong one on their paper. Make sure they triple check that they put the right answer, that they don't misalign questions. The other thing is sometimes they will skip a question, forget, and then everything will become misaligned. Because they'll do, okay, I'm skipping question 26, but then when they do 27, they'll put it in the bubble for 26. So tell them, even if they're guessing, circle it on their question paper, not the answer paper. The answer paper has to be neat. Circle it on your question paper and put in a guess, anything. Guess something on your exam paper and keep on going, because otherwise they'll often misalign at the end. Once time is up, you can't do anything. They can't let you swap it over later. It's not possible. So make sure they do that. And the other thing I did also mention before is if you panic when you see the question, everyone else is also panicking. Okay? You can't see it maybe, but they're all panicking. So the important thing here is to remember that you have limited time. Don't spend half an hour of your writing time like, oh my god, I've never seen this
panicking and thinking.
Like I said before, identify the audience, the form that you're supposed to write in. Pick out what the main thing they're asking. Are they asking you to evaluate something, explain something, argument? What are they asking, right? Make sure you're very, very to the point on that and just do your best. Okay, everyone obviously in your life, they want you to do the best you can. That's it. It's just one exam. Do as well as you can, and then doesn't matter what I
just forget about it. I guess.
Do the exam, do your best in that moment, and then go home and enjoy yourself. Do all the things that you haven't been able to do for the past
while you're preparing for it.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess we're almost on the time. Thank you so much for all the input and for all the suggestions, Angela. From the Hey Guru team, I do a sign off. Thank you so much for attending our session. Do drop us questions, queries, concerns. We'll come back to them as in offline messages and as in offline responses. And keep watching for any updates from our page. Thank you so much and all the best for your exam. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.